Have you been playing Cyberpunk in VR with Luke Ross's real mod? Well, I have good news. The best Cyberpunk experience you could have in VR just got way better. Well, at least for some of us. As you may or may not know, Luke's mod uses a process called alternate eye rendering, or AER, to create a full 3D VR in our headsets. In a nutshell, this process takes the frames being sent to your headset and splits them up into images that alternate quickly from eye to eye to create that VR effect. It does have its downsides. If you're getting 90 frames per second sent to your headset, this process will cut those in half, so you're only getting 45 frames per second per eye. Or 60 frames per second, you're getting 30 per eye, and so on. This causes a very noticeable ghosting of objects and characters, especially when they move from side to side or laterally to where you're looking, or if you're strafing or turning. And unfortunately, it's not something that you can really capture when you're recording because it's an illusion, but it is there. The lower the frame rate, the worse it is. To remedy this, Luke has created AER 2.0. This uses NVIDIA's ASW to replace frames in between the ones that you're actually sent to your headset. And the results are 90 frames per second, you are getting 90 frames per eye per second. You may be hearing things like 180 frames per second, and I believe that's what that means. It's just that we're getting full performance, like a sync camera in VR. And what this does is it eliminates ghosting. The beauty of this is that you can also drop your refresh rate down in your headset, so it creates room on your GPU to do things like bump up your resolution and the graphics settings to give us a near perfect VR experience. Now I'm going to say, in theory. I know the goal of this was that Luke wanted people with mid-range graphics cards to be able to improve performance and graphical settings in games that he has modded, but I've been testing this a lot. And just like with Final Fantasy VII Remake, on my 2080 Super with Cyberpunk, I would rather just use Legacy AER. In my testing with close to the settings that I ran on Legacy, I was able to get it running somewhat smoothly, but when I would walk forward, or watch traffic, it would slow down and then it would just lurch forward, and it would just do this over and over and over again, like rhythmically. So I dropped the settings down more and more to the point where I had my graphics settings all the way as low as they could go, and my resolution set as low as it can go in the game, which is 1056 by 1056, and I ran a benchmark and I still could not get over 55 frames per second average, and you want at least 60 frames per second for a smooth experience. Plus, the game looked like a PS1 game. It was like super blurry, halo-filled mess, but on the plus side, there was no ghosting, so I mean, it's doing its job there. I've talked to a few folks with other mid-range cards, like a 3060 Ti and even a 3080 Ti, having similar issues. So I don't know how powerful of a card you need to get this working well. Let me know of your experiences in the comments, because this is for science. Okay, that was the bad news. The good news is that if you were fortunate enough to have an RTX 4090, you are in for a real treat. Cyberpunk is a super heavy game, and I wasn't able to put my graphics settings up any from where I had them set with Legacy AER. You could see those settings in this video here. But I already had the game looking absolutely stunning with super high resolution and some custom graphical settings, and the ghosting was still there, and really I didn't realize how much it was there until I got AER2 up and running. As you can see in this side-by-side, especially in the beginning cutscene of the game, it takes a hit in frame rates in both AER and AER2. Worse than AER2 actually, but you have to consider that you're getting half the frames per second per eye with AER. So even if you have a little lower frame rates with AER2, it's a much smoother experience. There's no ghosting. You've got nice crispy edges around the characters and objects. There is maybe a little bit of shimmer yet on some objects, but nothing like there is in AER. You can really see it here in a side-by-side benchmark test comparison. Look at the doubling of the images of the people as you go by them laterally in AER compared to those nice solid looking people in AER2. As you could see on the screen, AER and AER2 both held a steady 80 frames per second the whole time doing this benchmark. AER did dip down just a little bit to like 75. I think it went even to 73 at one point outside, but the average was still 79.5, so that's excellent. Well, when I was testing with AER on the 4090, on my index, I had it set at 144 hertz, and I was getting about 110 frames per second, which when you think about it is only 55 frames per second per eye. And now I'm getting 80 frames per second per eye, which is a much smoother experience. And you feel it when you're in the headset. Everything looks and feels so smooth when you're walking. And I went through these doors and I looked down at the floor. With Legacy AER, there was a shimmer all over the little circles, but they look normal in AER too. And the pavement outside with AER had a shimmer to it. Everything kind of shimmered and all the little gaps around the fencing were dancing like crazy. One place where it was super obvious was when I was in the car with Padre and we would turn. He would get all shaky and doubled, and the edges of the car around the seats and the lights would double and get shaky. And when I looked out the side windows at all the people or any images or lights that went by, they were double imaged. Now you can't see that double image here because once again, the ghosting is an illusion, but when you're in the headset, it's extremely obvious. Now, I spent over 300 hours in Cyberpunk, all in VR, and it was all with Legacy AER. So I got used to it, and I really didn't even see the ghosting anymore, but man, do I see it now. With AER2, all that doubling is gone, and it's crazy how much more real and solid everything looks. The game seriously now looks and performs like a native VR game. Once again, if you can get it running on your card. To get AER2 working, just install Luke's mod. I'm not going to go over all of that in this video. You can follow the step-by-step instructions on this video here. And after you are in the VR, open the mod overlay by pressing both triggers and use your directional pad to scroll down and highlight either a half or a third AER. Legacy, of course, is the old AER. On a 4090, you want the half. Now, as far as the graphics settings in the video I've referenced at the beginning of this, the link is in the description. Now, after that, you're ready to roll. I have noticed that in this version of the mod is not quite as stable as previous versions, and I've had a few more crashes than I'm used to. That actually started more after Luke released the emergency patch for the mod when CDPR pushed the DLSS 3 update that broke the mod. I'm sure this will be fixed soon though. Also, if the mod doesn't start up in VR in your headset, and you followed the directions I gave in that one video to a T, I honestly don't know what to tell you. All I could say is try contacting Luke on his Patreon and see if he has any suggestions. Also, AER2 is on all of Luke's mod's older games now. I just got done playing some Horizon Zero Dawn with it, and it is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in VR to date. It's even sharper and crisper than Horizon Call of the Mountain on PSVR 2, and less ghosting, which is ironic. As I said before, make sure to let me know in the comments what your experiences with this new tech is. I'm super curious to know how powerful of a card you need before you can get a great experience with AER2. Thanks for watching, everybody. And please, if you found this informative, throw me a like and a subscribe. There are so many amazing things happening in VR and in the flat to VR modding world coming up, and I'll be covering them here on the channel. Thanks again, everyone. Dr. Greg, out.